sharing some stats with you and the urgency of it, and then talk about the existing check-in volunteer programs that are out there amongst the people that are on the call, the models that you use, some of the challenges and the privacy issues, the guided, and then we're going to have hopefully a really wholesome discussion, guided discussion. And then just finishing off next week, as you all know, is a very important week. And normally we would be celebrating this big time with our Voskers, amongst many other things, and you as well in your personal organizations as well. So we'll finish off with that. So welcome again, everyone. So happy to have you on the call. There's a lot of people participating, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Just wanted to highlight that the process at Volunteer MBC, which we have been following for, 3 weeks now, I guess, is that we have created a COVID-19 emergency responder position. And what we typically do with the applicants, and that's increasing the number of volunteers that are applying for that role, we're filtering them as they come in based on their skills and based on what our member organizations are looking for. And we continue to promote that and on social media, but what we are finding is that there's still much higher of a supply than there is demand. So I really want to encourage you on the line to create those positions, and in this case, whether it's a virtual position, the topic of today, whether it's a telephone service, and all the different volunteer requirements that you have, please post them. Ask for our help. We will be more than happy to do that. And then we will continue to send those volunteers to you. Talking a little bit more about the actual social isolation. So we've done a little bit of research, and I believe, Sean, you have some slides to share as well. But even before the COVID-19 pandemic, 1 in 4 adults between the ages of 50 and 80 said that they felt very isolated, and that was before the pandemic broke out. So obviously, social isolation amongst seniors, especially vulnerable seniors, is a really serious public health concern. And it does, research has indicated that it definitely puts seniors at a much higher risk when it comes to mental health issues. And seniors, that normally have places of worship, are programs that they can come to, the programs that you all offer. All of a sudden now they are unable to offer those programs, and they're even feeling more isolated. So unless they have family or friends that they can rely on, immediate family or friends, which is often not the case, then they are completely isolated. So this is why we wanted to have this conversation with all of you. And it's not just seniors, obviously. There's a lot of vulnerable people that are being completely isolated right now. And so, collaborating, and how can we tackle this together? I want to say up front that we're not the experts in this. You all are. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to be that connector so that we can, connect those very vulnerable seniors to your organization so that they can take advantage of the service, and be that initial, contact, if you will. So, Sean, did you have some more slides to share?
Yes, I'd like to just speak briefly. Yeah, and as Corinne said, social isolation is certainly a major factor. So just this isn't a webinar, so I'm not going to go into a long story about social isolation. You're probably familiar with the issue, but I wanted to set the context of our kind of discussion. So, as Corinne said, more than half Canadians are reporting feeling lonely during COVID-19. She said 1 in 4 before the situation, and now more than half. So you can see the difference it's making. I think some people are also still in the impression that this isolation might just be ending in a couple of weeks or a month or something, and it doesn't appear that that'll be the case. And even the Prime Minister recently announced that even when things return to normal, it won't be normal. There may be another period of having to physically distance. That maybe be a certain number of waves in which we'll have to deal with that in order to prevent further outbreaks. 68% of people in the 18 to 34 age bracket report feelings of isolation, which is really significant because we think of isolated people, and I'm going to speak to the risk factors. And yes, certainly older adults are at risk, but there are people in this age bracket, 18 to 34, was the largest, highest percentage of respondents who said that they're feeling social isolation. It doesn't always manifest itself as sadness. It comes in and it causes other emotions to present: anger, grief, irritability, frustration, confusion. So those are things also that show us that people are feeling isolated, and that it has a major physical and cognitive effect and leads to other increased health risks. So that's something that we have to be mindful of, that it's not just a problem that's, as they say, in your head. It can be something that leads to dramatic effects. So that's the idea of social isolation. But I just want to speak to some of the risk factors that we can watch out for. So essentially, there's numerous studies that have shown what are some of the risk factors. So going through life transitions, certainly there are some certain demographic factors and location-based factors. So I'll start from the bottom, actually, because the location-based factors here: living alone, living in residential care, living in an area with high levels of material deprivation or low-income areas, living in areas where crime is an issue. These are certain risk factors that should be considered. And then, aside from your physical location, there's your social location, or so your demographic factors: being from an ethnic minority community, being LGBTQ plus, being single, divorced, or never married, living on a low income. Those demographic factors increase your likelihood of facing social isolation or loneliness. Life transitions are a major one. Facing bereavement, death in the family is certainly a major one. Some of our organizations specifically focus on providing support to people suffering from a loss. Being a caregiver or having to give up caregiving, that's actually quite significant. Many people are becoming caregivers for a lot of different reasons. And then what happens when that person is gone? Some people are even going to be facing the having to take care of their loved ones, and then at the same time, if they're affected by COVID-19 or for another reason, they have to stop caring for that person, or even if in the case of a death, they may have to stop caring for that person. That might cause them to have a life transition that throws them into isolation. And certainly retirement, another major one, that transition. It's also true that if you recently came to the city, you've moved here, you may be alone for that reason, and that's both a life transition and a location-based reason. And then other health and disability factors: having a disability, including a sensory impairment or having more than one sensory impairment, having mobility issues, or otherwise poor health. They're all risk factors that increase your likelihood of facing isolation. So these are things that we can watch out for, and we might be seeing them in some of our volunteers. And some of these are visible and invisible. So it is definitely going to be a community issue to be able to watch out for each other and say, hey, we know that it's quite likely people are feeling isolated. Reach out to me, and then proactively potentially reaching out to people even who may not ask. So those are some of the things that I wanted to mention regarding the risk factors, and we'll get into a little bit of discussion shortly I do also want to mention, we have some active volunteer positions. I don't know, some of our member organizations might be on the line. These are just a few that we've identified now from our system. There are a number of other ones out there, and that's what we'll be happy to hear about on the call. But I've included the links here. So Indus is running a program that's active right now. So is our Active Adult Center in Mississauga. The Distress Centers of Greater Toronto, formerly known as Spectra, is running their outbound telephone support, and Cal Meals on Wheels, and they're all recruiting volunteers, at least partly through us. And that means that we're able to, we know that, okay, we have that resource out there. But if we don't have a volunteer position from our member organizations or from people subscribing to our emergency subscription, then we won't know to provide you with that volunteer power. But aside from providing you with the volunteer power, it's also the knowledge that you're offering a service which everyone can benefit from. And if we are becoming aware of people who are facing social isolation, that we could refer them to you. There are different models that the organizations are running, and I think we'll hear a little bit in detail from those organizations on what their model is like. But in many cases, it's a phone number. It's often through some kind of referral process. Some people call directly themselves, and others have been recommended to call. And then what happens on the other end of the line? A volunteer or sometimes a staff member. Some organizations will pick up and try to provide some kind of support. Some of you may have seen an email from me earlier this week where I was mentioning that I used to be a volunteer on a phone friend line for children, and I think there are many ways in which these kind of check-in programs can manifest, and because isolation is such a pervasive and wide issue, we can definitely benefit from understanding these models and working together. So that's the context in which we have that, and I think that's all I need to say for now. So we'll move into the guidance discussion, and I'll hand it back to Karine and Shaminda.
So thank you very much, Sean, for that. Just before we continue, and just to add a little bit more of a setting, I mentioned this on the Peel Community Response table as well. That's focused on dealing with senior engagement or the lack of at this time, and how we're getting calls from especially seniors that are used to volunteer and can no longer volunteer. And in particular, that we're getting, I think Madhuri has daily conversations with one of the seniors that used to volunteer her services. She's 97, I believe, that used to volunteer her services for a food bank. And of course, it can no longer volunteer. So not only does she live alone and feels isolated, she now feels like there's no purpose to her being here as well. So those are some of the things we have to keep in mind. And as we start the discussion, it would be really good to hear from some of the organizations that offer those services. And I'm going to give it over to you, Shaminda, to continue from here.
Thanks, Karine. So everyone, I'm going to just share right now into the chat box of this call the crux of this particular discussion question. So basically, it is like what you see on the screen boils down to three major discussion points. One is, what are your approaches or the programs you have to support the clients who are isolated? And what are the most challenging circumstances to your clients? And the third one, how can we as Volunteer MBC be a conduit to support you in supporting your clients? So I'm opening the floor to anyone who wants to pipe in.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but is anybody on the call from the region of Peel?
Hi. Hi, it's Alex here. I'm here.
Hi, Alex. Would you mind signing off?
So we are basically waiting daily and hearing a lot of background information that's going to eventually come into a volunteer program. So I can't really say we're actively working on a volunteer program right now. But we have made plans for programs such as working with seniors who need telephone support. So everything's ready. Like we have a position description ready to go. We're you know, got all the risks in place, everything that would be a possibility. So in terms of what your questions are, I don't know if I could realistically answer anything right now, but you know, I can give you an idea of what our clients, our internal Region Appeal clients are asking for. Would that be helpful?
That would be great.
Okay, so let me see here. I'm just going back through my messages. So one of our clients or sorry, partners in Region Appeal is the community living housing, Peel Living. So a lot of these people are seniors living in community housing. They're all, you know, in their 70s or 80s. They have much difficulty with mobility. You know, they wouldn't even be able to go to the grocery store because how are they going to wait in the lineups there? All that is very difficult. So it's a lot to consider when we get into the weeds of it. Like, oh, there's a lot going on with people in the community. So they're asking for us to prepare for a possibility of having volunteers call them. So we have kind of formulated some plans, and the challenges, well, would be, you know, just making sure that we've got people who are qualified, know how to have a conversation with seniors. If it turned into maybe a possibility of having a video chat with seniors, would that be a possibility? Some seniors are a little more savvy than others, so could probably get on a Skype call or Facebook call or something like that. So we're going to be screening for that technology and hopefully having people who are ready to go with either phone or video chat.
That's great. Thank you so much. Andrea, are you on the line? Andrea from Caledon Community Services? Andrea, you're muted. Would you be able to talk a little bit about the program that you have?
She's doesn't have audio. Maybe she's going to type something in.
Andrea told me that actually they're still in the very early stages of developing the program, so they're doing a lot of investigating right now.
I'm here from the Active Adult Center of Mississauga.
Wonderful.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Is that Kamala?
It is. Hello.
Hi.
And
Go ahead.
please forgive me, I am not very tech savvy, so if I link out, I apologize. So if I can just simply add to your discussion, we obviously at the Active Adult Center of Mississauga do support over 1,500 seniors. We have established something internally to support our volunteers, members, and folks that are connected to our center. We are offering, I guess, a connection via our website. We are offering teleconferencing opportunities. We're looping in Zoom opportunities. We have Family Services of Peel linked up with us, and they are offering individual counseling as well as a connection to our participants via like a circle of friends session. We've started Stitch and Chat, Mall Walker sessions. Our book club session is up and running. Our own instructors are running sessions individually, and then we're looping it into either connection through the email or on our website. We have our telephone reassurance program, and now our volunteers beyond the TRP program that are part of our different departments are looping into creating a natural connection with our 1,500 seniors. So we are actively engaged and listening to folks, what their needs are, and then simply connecting them with the resources that are out there. And that's it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you've been doing this, the friendly calls, you've been doing that for some time, right? That was an established program, right?
I think it's over 10 years.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of experience with that. So could you maybe for the leaders of volunteers that are on the line that are just thinking of starting that, not necessarily with older adults, but with any of the isolated public, would you be able to give some tips and or some of the challenges that you have experienced?
Well, I can't speak on how we established the TRP program. I can only speak on behalf of what it's like now. The nature of the calls are, I guess, more severe, more in-depth. People are in crisis, and unfortunately, there are limited resources that are physically out there right now. So what we're trying to tap into is specialized services that can cater to what people's needs are. We're at an advantage at the Active Adult Center in which folks know each other, they know the membership, they're familiar with the volunteers, and each and every staff, we're reaching out to those that are most in crisis. I think if anybody will initiate or is thinking of initiating this type of program, it should probably obviously generate from a relationship that is already there. Because I know when we're reaching out to some of our members that haven't been part of the center for quite some time, suspicion, they're feeling a little bit reluctant to share, like, who the hell are you calling me? But if there's a natural connection, it's easier for the dialogue to open and, build. So I don't know if that helps, Corinne.
Yeah, absolutely. That helps a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm also tapping into, we have some very good volunteers that are, retired nurses, retired social workers, doctors, teachers that would be certainly instrumental in, taking a leadership role.
Right.
Kamala,
Yes, sir.
this is Shaminder, and I'm trying to bring back to the table a question asked by someone who's on the line, Rona, where is there any way that you are addressing the challenges of engaging the older adults in particular activities using technology? And how have you overcome those challenges if you were able to?
Okay, so we just had that discussion this morning where we had someone willing to supply like 10 new laptops. The problem rests with, looping people into having access to the internet. Many of the folks, the longer this crisis, continues, technology is not at the forefront. Waking up, eating, collaborating with other people, decreasing their depression, something. Because if someone is in front of a computer and they cannot figure out how to click on something, I think the anxiety increases, tenfold. So something like just, starting off with a phone call, starting off with something on the TV that people can just do a quick click. And then in time, I think it becomes easier.
That's a very good point.
Those are just examples that we're experiencing.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Kamala. Very valuable tips there.
Yeah. I also wondered if what you think, Carmela, and some of the other people on the line about the importance of making sure that the volunteers are trained, initially. And so Volunteer BC is working on providing, some of that initial training that is required. But when it comes to safety and how you lead the conversations and things like that. But how do you think how important is that from your perspective?
Are you asking me or others?
Asking you and others, but certainly, please feel free to start.
I certainly personally would err on the side of caution. The folks that we're reaching out to are incredibly fragile at this time. And unless you can guarantee the individual that you link up them to can provide the support that they require, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the liability is, enormous, but that's why perhaps even running smaller groups, maybe not even focused on what kind of emotional support you need, but it could be something as basic as, oh my gosh, gardening season is right around the corner. Utilizing your expertise at the volunteer center of linking seniors up to shopping online, shopping over the phone, tapping them into resources that are physically out there that they can easily loop themselves into. But something light, gardening, learning how to play an instrument, learning a new language, something that will distract people. So that 97-year-old lovely lady might know how to stitch or chat or, stitch and chat or crochet, or she might know like a specific skill that she can share with others.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are all very good points, like keeping the conversations generic and leaving especially when somebody is dealing with mental health issues, maybe getting the signs out of that, but then transferring them to people that really know how to deal with all those things, right?
Dealing with empowerment.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else would like to comment on that?
Hi, it's Derek from the city. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can, Derek.
Good. I don't know what happened last time, so I'm glad it works now. So thank you. I agree with Carmela on a lot of that information. I like what you said, Karine. I mean, I think initially volunteers getting some training and screening through your organization, through Volunteer MBC is great, but then I think it's the specific organization that needs the volunteer position. It's their responsibility to do further training for safety or whatever it is, because they're the experts for their field, and they should be taking charge of that part. Like, that shouldn't be on Volunteer MBC, for example. And also, I believe myself that the position should be based on the mandate of the organization. So that's not to say people can't create new positions, volunteer positions, if they're needed. But for example, at the city, we're not volunteer based, and we're not hiring any staff right now, so we won't be creating any new volunteer positions. But for example, places like the food bank and other organizations like Peel Health, they already have programs in place, so there's no reason for us to create those new positions. And if we're filtering people to you and you're filtering the people that want to fill those positions to them, I think that's great, because it does need to be based on the position and people that have the experience to deliver that. So to Carmela's point, if you don't have the resources to deliver the program, even if you have the right intentions, it's only going to frustrate people if everything's sort of not in place and they don't have the ability to do it. So starting off like Carmela suggested, I think is great. Or depending on what your organization already has in place, what you're able to do. And I can guarantee from my own personal experience with my mother, technology is very frustrating for her. She's isolated. Not physically, she's isolated, not socially, because we can contact her and do things, but I can't even help her over the phone trying to do things on the computer myself. It gets very frustrating. So whatever is put into place should be probably basic and what's needed, if that makes any sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Laura Nollis. I'm with Caledon Public Library.
Laura.
Hi. I would like to lead off to say that we are not involved with the volunteers placing the telechat calls out, but what the library can offer is not necessarily training, but we can offer the resource. And for those junior seniors that might be tech savvy, a little more tech savvy, we have many resources that will maybe take the frustration out of what they're dealing with. Couple of points. We can offer a instant library card, and then with that instant, and that's done online. With that instant library card, it opens up a world of resources, everything from tutorials on just how to navigate Facebook to watch a knitting video on Creative Bug. There's watching a movie, reading a book. All of those things can be accessed. All those resources can be accessed through the free instant library card. So that could be a resource possibly that the volunteers could have in their back pocket when they're placing the calls out. We even have a one-on-one tech help. So if a senior is feeling frustrated, we can do a one-on-one with them. It is virtual, so they do need, it doesn't help with those seniors that are lacking the devices or the internet connection, but for those that do have those tools, the laptop and the connection, there's resources that definitely the library can provide, and I can share scripts, handouts, postcards, anything that you wish. I can certainly give that to you.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much. I wonder if the library system in Mississauga and Brampton are offering similar services, but certainly something that volunteers can reference and offer to not just seniors, but anybody that's really isolated and could really benefit from that. So thank you, Laura. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
To respond to that, Corrine, it's Derek again from the city of Mississauga. I can't speak 100%. I'm sort of familiar with what's going on, but again, because of we're a pretty big machine and there's a lot of moving parts. And I work for recreation. The library is a separate division, but obviously because of the volunteer coordinating, I'm aware of some things. There are some efforts to reach out to people, but we're just in the early stages for that, because for the city of Mississauga, speaking generally for all of our programs, again, we're not volunteer-based, meaning our programs are run by staff and they're enhanced by volunteers. So we have volunteers to support, where I know some of the organizations, the volunteers sort of run the programs, and if they don't have the volunteers, the programs won't run, whereas most of ours are a little bit different. So there are some efforts and some considerations. So some people are in the library and other areas reaching out by email to their volunteers, maybe to do surveys to see if they would like to participate in sort of like a video chat, so to speak. So that might prevent some isolation and to help us with future programming. But these programs probably then would be run by staff, meaning if we were to do video video chats or whatever, that would probably be run by the staff, because like I mentioned before, we're not even hiring staff right now. So the staff would be sort of the first in line to do those type of programs. And as far as resources, I know the library was a big hub for us, for people, for newcomers or people who couldn't afford, maybe the resources to have the internet or whatnot. We did have those services in the library, but of course the buildings are closed. So I'm not quite sure at this stage how it would look for. Like, again, we wouldn't be providing that to volunteers. If staff were running the programs, they would get sort of the computers to run those programs from home. So I don't know how we would hook up that way, even though we had the resources. I think Carmela mentioned this before. It's a matter of getting the resources to the people and out.
Right.
And with the way things are now, and being cognizant of not making things worse, I'm not quite sure how we could get those resources out to the people, other than that there will be online resources for anyone to use, whether they're volunteers or just regular residents, to click on programs. We have fitness programs. I know that the fitness section has started, so if people can't go to the gyms to work out, and I know this doesn't apply necessarily to seniors, but there's places, I don't know if it's quite introduced yet, but they've been working on different programs that people could click on it and say, watch a video with, one click, and here's a home workout you can do at home without equipment. So we're looking at those things, but those for our organizations we're trying to figure it out from a staff perspective first before we get down to the volunteer level.
Right.
Thank you, Derek, for sharing that. And also, Karin, just to bring back to the forum, our colleague at United Way, Adisha Waterwala, has shared over the chat. And if anybody's searching, the time mark is at 12:34. She says that CAA is also offering various, charitable and not-for-profit organizations to help with taking supplies back and forth to those who may be feeling isolated. So they are, according to the chat, and if I have understood it right, they are CAA South Central Ontario. They are signing their their idling fleets to help not-for-profits and charities to carry out some things like medicine, pharmaceuticals, food, medical equipment, and I believe anything else.
Can I just add one more thing? One of my colleagues, it's Carmela again, she sat in on a session this week, and one of the resources that she provided to us, and it would be beneficial to you all, is cyberseniors.org. And apparently they're listing a number of resources as well as training modules for volunteers in supporting seniors.
Yeah, I just came across that as well. So that's certainly something that we can already we could take on, as part of the learning and the training. And then when we push the volunteers towards your organizations, you could certainly pick up on that training from there as well. So that's a great resource, Carmela. I haven't had a chance to look at it in depth, but certainly really, really good material there. So thank you for that. Anyone else that would like to offer feedback on the first part? Is there anything in the chat box? No? Shaminda, maybe do you want to lead to the second question?
Yes, the second question is, how can Volunteer MBC help you with the work that you do? We are, until someone pipes in, we are constantly looking at resources on what we can upload to our COVID versus COVID-19 webpage. And Sean is doing a great job in keeping those resources coming up on the site. And but is there anything else from the context of helping those who may be feeling isolated? We discussed a little in detail about seniors, but I would like to sort of bring us back to anyone who's feeling isolated because of whatever the circumstances are. How can, from a volunteerism perspective, a community connection perspective, how can Volunteer MBC support you? What would you need from us?
You know what? At my end, it's Carmela again. Sorry, I'm hogging your site, but I know, as I alluded to when we first began, any specific folks that have very specialized skills, whether or not they're motivational speakers, whether or not they're, you know, let's say laughter yoga, anything dealing with counseling, I would keep it away from that. But Derek, help me on this. But any additional training, sessions, classes that would simply work on building different skill sets for any age.
Right, right.
So whether or not it's like, whether or not it's a language, whether or not it's painting, ukulele, piano.
And if I can chip in, Carmela, just to what you're saying, I think what you're saying, and I think what volunteer, can you hear me?
Yeah.
And I think what Volunteer MBC is already doing is the right direction. I don't think we should get too granular with this. So for example, you guys have your website up, you're getting positions that are created. Somebody mentioned it before, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting names, that the position's already ready for something that's maybe going to start in the future. If we have the positions up, whatever those positions are, whether it's ukulele lessons, whatever, like Carmela said, it doesn't matter what it is. If the position's up for it, Volunteer MBC, for example, and anybody from Volunteer MBC can type in, because I know I'm probably missing some points, is that you've got the position up, it says what's required. So if I'm a volunteer and I know ukulele and I want to do the ukulele and I see a position up, I can apply for it. Volunteer MBC will do the initial screening. There's possibly some generalized training. Then I go to the ukulele organization that actually posted it, and they take it further. So I think we should only be posting positions that people have. And obviously we want to create things that are needed, but that's up to the organizations who can do that and support that. So I think where we've started, I'm saying we, but I'm meaning Volunteer MBC, this group, I think what Volunteer MBC's already done is the way to go. Like, let's put the positions up, maybe rank them in the order that they're needed. For example, ukulele in isolation that we're talking about is great, but what's the bigger need, so that the volunteers who go can decide what they apply for, and then it's up to the individual organizations or on the position descriptions to know what the qualifications are. For example, if you have a distress line and you have, higher qualifications for somebody who's talking, and I go on that and see, oh yeah, that's not for me, then I'm going to self-screen myself and maybe do the ukulele because I can play the ukulele. So I think what's been started is the right way. So if there are social isolation positions that go up, they would just be added to the list, like for the food banks and for the support for medicine and those kind of things. So I think everything is headed in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert here. Can I just interject for a moment?
Yeah, I was just going to put it over to you, Robert, because we have, to help you out, we have created, or Robert has created, a number of positions that templates that you can use to post your position. So Robert, over to you.
Thank you. I have in the chat room entered the template for the seniors connecting with these check-ins for seniors by seniors. It's a template that's highly focused on social isolation. That's and you can find it as part of the list of templates under Volunteer MBC, and it's not Volunteer MBC itself, but it's right next to it. It's a template sort of category. It's not even an organization, it's just a category. This is designed to help our member organizations, and it's accessible to any community service organization who has access to the website. So we're being very generous that way. The other thing that I want to mention too is one of the challenges that we're seeing is the fact that member organizations or community services sometimes don't really have what I call intelligence gathering in terms of who really needs to be help during the COVID-19. So what we did, or what I've done, is create what I call a neighborhood captain template that is designed for people who know their neighborhoods, know their neighbors, know an area, can organize a campaign, as it were, to go out, even drop a postcard, a flyer, make a couple of phone calls, find out who's at risk and who's vulnerable. This is in essence investigating and then creating an opportunity for a community service organization to go in and reach out to those seniors and others who are isolated and vulnerable and at risk. One last thing from me, at least, I really need more members to create volunteer positions. As Corinne pointed out at the outset of this session, there are more volunteers asking than positions that are per se available. And we don't want to leave our volunteers sort of on the sidelines if we can help it. I know it's difficult. I know that there may be staffing issues in terms of capacity to create those positions, but believe me, I'm here to help you. All you need to do is take the initiative.
It's Derek from the city again. Thank you, Robert. I like what you said. I think the templates are great, especially for people who maybe aren't as well versed in creating something that good. I just want to go back to a point that Carmela said and Chandra said in one of the other meetings, is that it depends on sometimes on the organizations too when you have these positions in these surveys that go out. So I think it is definitely helpful if we send out surveys as a group, for example, or Volunteer MBC sends it out, that it's either done through Volunteer MBC probably, or a larger organization, because as Carmela mentioned, there is a lot of scams going around and people are not sure what to do. And as Chandra mentioned earlier on, as we don't want to duplicate things. So if actually somebody is doing that, maybe just one organization does that and not like 5. To do that. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Although a lot of the organizations that do have these services in place are very focused on, a cultural community, and so it's sometimes it's easier for people to be more familiar, and that's why it's great to have organizations that focus specifically on those type of audiences. I'm just mindful we've got 9 minutes left, and I wondered if anyone else has some comments or some feedback. Some of the things.
Hi,
Go ahead.
Oh, it's Nadisha from United Way, Greater Toronto. Hi, everyone. First
Hi.
of all, thank you very much for hosting these weekly sessions. Very informative and helpful. Even if I miss it, I make sure to log back in and listen. And we really rely on the expertise of our local volunteer centers during this time. I did want to add to your question around what else can Volunteer MBC be doing to support people. So I live in West Brampton. There was a church during the Easter weekend. They've received some 2,000 donation of lilies, and some, I don't know, hundreds of volunteers delivered them door to door. We woke up in the morning to find a beautiful lily on our porch. So I think there's a lot of informal groups happening like that. I wonder next week during National Volunteer Week, if you could, I don't know, maybe on social media, I don't know what the way to encourage that sort of informal or local. I love the mention of neighborhood captain ideas. There's a lot of local neighborhood captains in action, might not be formal organizations. So I wondered how we can really expand this definition of volunteers to those kind of local, very grassroots level groups. Even the church group I just mentioned is just one example in Brampton. So I just wanted to share that story.
Thank you, Nadisha. I really appreciate that.
Go ahead, Shimada. Did you want to add something? I had a thought on that as well. So, the one thing about the grassroots groups, as you said, they have these sort of informal people who are rising up to the occasion and becoming their own sort of neighborhood captain. So I think there could be some effort that we could make, or we could make it in partnership with some of the organizations to even go to the people and bridge the gap between the nonprofit sector and the grassroots groups, so that they're there. We could absolutely play a role, and if you know of community groups specifically. We're trying to come up with a list from our communication standpoint, so we can reach out to them, both for the purposes of collaborating with them, also for sure to protect volunteers. We feel an obligation to protect volunteers even when they're not connected with us. So we know about volunteers kind of going out and up and above and beyond the call of duty, but we want to also ensure that they're safe. So if organizations are aware of community groups, please relay them to us. I don't mind being told 4 times. You probably think, oh, so they may already know about them. Might be the case, but there'll be some. There's so many that are popping up, and some are don't even have a Facebook page. They're just somebody who's just doing something. So let us know. We'd love to tell their stories. We'd love to work with them. And that's a really great point. And I just wanted to quickly mention in response to Carmela's point about finding skilled volunteers with talents. That's something that we've been working on even prior to the crisis. We've been working on something along the lines of what's commonly called reverse matching, finding the skills first and then letting our organizations know, hey, these are the special skills that are available. So we call them super skills. So we've produced a super skills survey, which we do to kind of get to an idea of what's out there. And now we have some volunteers who are just that. They have some talented skills, and we'd like to relay them. And so we need to get a few organizations who are looking for those types of people to help us with a little bit of testing. Check it out. Let's build a process so that in the long run, we can eventually have a really great way of having organizations be able to find those specialized skills that they may not even be aware of what skills are available in the community until the volunteer comes up and says, I have the skill. So something we want to build and develop. So you can also reach out to me if you'd like to participate in more in that.
And that's a really important point, because I think, there's so many talented individuals amongst newcomers that have these skill sets, and that's really what we wanted to focus on. It gives them, it creates a win-win. It gives them obviously an opportunity to build their Canadian resumes, but at the same time, they're helping your organizations, with different ideas, and a lot of it can happen virtually right now. So just keeping that in mind on how you can build capacity for your organization. So that's one of the reasons why we specifically wanted to do this. Even think about your social media outreach. Could you use volunteers to help in that aspect? Things like that. So just keep that in mind, and we really want to work with you and help you out with your requirements. Even if you think it's outside the box, and please feel free to share that with us. We would love to work with you. And ultimately, as Sean says, we do want to build a list of assets in the community, assets amongst the volunteers that can be shared with the organizations that we support. So thank you for that. We've got 3 minutes left, and we did promise that we would talk a little bit more about National Volunteer Week. So Sean, do you want to take it from here?
Thanks so much, Corinne. Yeah, basically what we need to convey to you, some people touched on it. This Sunday kicks off National Volunteer Week. It's obviously a big week for us, and it's definitely a different week. So we'll be sending out some resources about how to celebrate National Volunteer Week virtually, a little bit about how you can kind of participate in our campaign so that you can show your support to your volunteers, how you can show the community a way of thanking volunteers. The national theme for National Volunteer Week is "It's time to applaud this nation's volunteers," which means it's all about saying thank you, which is really important. We want to thank all the volunteers out there that have been connected to the organizations for quite some time, but also, there's so many volunteers stepping up in this emergency, and we've talked about some of them over this call. Those grassroots volunteers, as well as the ones that are attached to your agencies. So we want to say thank you to them. So the hashtag Cheers to Volunteers is coming out. So you'll get an email for tomorrow saying, you know, what everything is going on with National Volunteer Week and how to participate and how we try to make it easy for you to have the right verbiage and images to, you know, thank volunteers. And we'd love to have you engage with us on social media throughout the week. One of the things we're doing, as you know, our staff is not a huge team, but we have enough team members for each day of the week. So we'll have you know, a message from each of us to our volunteers going out on each day of the week. So that's something that we're going to do, you know, in-house for our own volunteers as well. So there are lots of ways to participate. And we'd love to hear what you're doing. So if you want to connect with us, you know, do so. If you've got some special messaging on social media, please be sure to tag us, and we'll retweet and reshare those messages. And so National Volunteer Week is a really special time. Normally we do run the V Oscars, which we've postponed, you know, until September tentatively. So don't forget that you can also submit your nominations. We'll still take the nominations and hope that when it is time to run the V Oscars, however it's done, that we are able to recognize all of those volunteers. So definitely take the time to thank your volunteers, thank your colleagues, and we appreciate so much your time and participation in that.
Thank you, Sean. And it is 1 o'clock, so I want to be mindful of your time. We will send out the notes and upcoming workshops, please, or forums, I should say. Please let us know what else you want more information on. We'd love to hear from you and continue to work with you. And that's ultimately what we want to convey. We're here to support you so that we can get the most volunteers involved, making it a win for the volunteers, but ultimately making it a win for your organization so that you can deliver the services to the clients that you work with. So thank you so much again. Hoping that the rest of your day will go great, and we'll talk to you again soon, and hopefully next week. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Take good
Bye,
care.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.